Welcome to Epoch News. I'm Tatiana Darzi. The CCP's recruitment of overseas scholars for the Thousand Talents program has mysteriously disappeared from the largest Chinese internet search engine, Baidu. Many people believe that the CCP deleted related information in order to prevent program participants from being placed on an FBI list of persons of interest.
The Chinese Communist Party, CCP, developed a Thousand Talents program to recruit a large number of scholars from overseas. But recently, this program and its related information disappeared from the Chinese internet, showing no results on China's largest search engine, Baidu. Many believe that the CCP deleted all related information because it is trying to prevent its Thousand Talents program from becoming a list of persons of interest during the investigation carried out by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Other critics think the CCP has simply removed the program from the public eye. China's recruitment of overseas high-level talent, also called the Thousand Talents Program, was established by the Central Government of China, the CCP, in 2008 to recognize and recruit leading international experts in the field of science, innovation, and entrepreneurship. The candidates are given astonishing paychecks. Commentator on current affairs residing in the U.S., Zheng Haochang, expressed that
the Chinese Communist Party had never tried to cover up the real purpose of the Thousand Talent program, mainly because in the system of the Chinese Communist regime, it is considered normal and rightful to steal advanced technology. The CCP never feels guilty, so it is quite open about it. Besides, Western countries at the time were far from recognizing the risks and problems of the program, which they are now. Therefore, the list of the names of the Thousand Talent program was always public.
In September 2018, the FBI identified China's The Thousand Talents program as a focus of investigation. At the time, the CCP ordered official state media to suspend its propaganda coverage of news and information related to the program to avoid problems. Another commentator on current affairs residing in the U.S., Tong Jingyuan, said,
in fact, they removed a lot of sensitive information about the Thousand Talents program at the time, but they symbolically retained partial information of the program on the official website to portray the legitimacy of the program on a surface level. Now that this last bit of superficiality has gone, it means the CCP has realized that it is no longer beneficial to maintain the existence of a superficial plan of the program. In turn, it can be a reason for the United States to expand its investigation and sanctions against the CCP.
Tang believes that there are almost 10,000 people on China's talent list, although the project was nominally 1,000 people.
The majority of the members in this program have not yet received sanctions or investigations accordingly. So we can see from this angle that the Chinese Communist Party is not going to end the program. What they are doing now is to quickly go covert, even undercover, from above board, and wait out some time and scrutiny. Later, it will let the large group of people resume their role of play.
Tong believes that this Thousand Talents program will never end, now that it works as a secret operation. The CCP is not precluded from switching to other means of acquiring high-end U.S. technology at this current time in the U.S.-China relations.
The program becomes even more covert if it targets infiltrating the Americans. Either way, one thing is for sure, and that is that the CCP wants to infiltrate the U.S., destroy the U.S., and empty out the U.S. This goal will never change. What changes are the tools and methods they use in different times.
Since January this year, the FBI has investigated more than 100 cases related to this program. Scientists of the Thousand Talents program include Zheng Xiaoqing, who worked as an engineer at General Electric Co., Zhang Yiheng, who was a former tech professor at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, and many more have already been prosecuted for espionage or arrested. In addition, Charles Lieber, the head of Harvard's chemistry department, is accused of participating in the CCP's Thousand Talents program in lying to the U.S. Department of Defense and the National Institutes of Health about not receiving funding from the Chinese regime. According to investigative documents, Lieber had been working with Wuhan University of Technology since 2011 and received substantial funding, the equivalent of $1.5 million, to set up a lab in Wuhan, as well as $150,000 per year in living expenses and up to $50,000 a month in salary, prorated according to his actual work time in or for the Wuhan Institute.
The FBI has now arrested some members of this program, causing the CCP to put away its claws. But you have to understand that the CCP's mentality did not change at all. These Chinese Communist officials are forced to be astringent on executing the program and on fulfilling the objectives. In fact, the root of the mentality is still there. As long as the CCP exists, and so long as the situation allows, its thievery will emerge in different places with various methods and ways of stealing.
Critics believe that the CCP will not end its Thousand Talents program just because the United States launched an investigation, as the program has been operating for 10 years. The CCP will continue to operate the program even as it becomes a potential ticket to prison.
A U.S. official recently gave a speech in fluent Mandarin about democracy and freedom. However, the video was taken down 5 minutes after being uploaded on Weibo, a Chinese social media platform. On the other hand, a Chinese Communist Party or CCP official has the freedom to publish articles criticizing the U.S. government in American media.
Recently, a U.S. official delivered a speech about freedom of speech and democracy in Mandarin, but the video was deleted less than 5 minutes after it was published on the Chinese social media platform Weibo. Meanwhile, Chinese Communist officials freely published articles criticizing the U.S. government on American media. The Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs under the Department of State tweeted the following on May 6th. Last night, Washington Post carried Chinese Ambassador Cui Tiankai's op-ed because that's what freedom of the press looks like. Also last night, Matt Pottinger's speech on Weibo disappeared within 5 minutes because that's what censorship looks like. Later, the Embassy of the United States in Beijing retweeted this tweet and also translated it to Chinese. The Chinese ambassador in the U.S., Cui Tiankai, published an article with the title, "Ignoring the Facts to Blame China Will Only Make Things Worse," in the Washington Post, and the content of the article aligns with the Foreign Ministry of China, which seeks to avoid taking responsibility for the consequences caused by the cover-up of the virus at the early stage. Deputy National Security Advisor of the United States, Matt Pottinger, was invited to a seminar discussing the relationship between the U.S. and China hosted by the University of Virginia on May 4th. Pottinger delivered a speech about freedom of speech and democracy using his perfect Mandarin.
The great thing about democracy in the U.S. is that even though I 100% disagree with your point of view, I 100% support your freedom of speech. This is a Western society. In the Chinese Communist regime, everyone is only allowed to speak in unity, no dissent, no discord.
Matt Pottinger was a journalist for Reuters and the Washington Post. He was deployed to China for 7 years where he spoke fluent Mandarin. While in China, he was arrested by the police for reporting on the corruption inside the CCP and was also beaten by national security officers. As a result, he understands perfectly the threats posed by the CCP's censorship on freedom of the press. In his speech, he said that in today's China, you need courage in order to talk to reporters and to be a reporter. It is extremely difficult to find local and foreign investigative journalists in China. Many citizen journalists like Chen Choushi and Li Zehua, Fang Bin, who were trying to disclose the truth about the epidemic in Wuhan, disappeared. In recent months, the number of foreign journalists who were expelled by the Chinese Communist Party was more than what the Soviet Union did in 10 years. A Chinese netizen tweeted that his Twitter account was blocked by the webmaster for 3 days with the excuse of spreading bad rumors, but all he did was simply forward the information given by the Embassy of the United States in Beijing to his group chat. He said, what Matt Pottinger and Mike Pompeo said was freedom of speech, but in the eyes of an authoritarian regime, it is rumors.
The CCP utilizes the rhetoric of freedom of speech from overseas to brainwash the Chinese people. It wants to give the people a sense of overseas people have heard us and are supporting us, and achieves control over the public opinion inside China.
Hua Po indicated that it is impossible for the CCP to avoid responsibility.
The article written by Cui Tiankai aimed to divert attention and escape from the scrutiny of other nations. Nonetheless, the CCP indeed suppressed freedom of speech and covered up the epidemic. This is supported by evidence.
Xing Tianxing believes that the pandemic and all other natural disasters occurring in China are a warning from God, signaling that the CCP is on the verge of extermination.
A survey revealed that several Swedish cities had ended all cooperation and canceled all Confucius institutes and Confucius classroom initiatives. Swedish politicians said that this is the result of the CCP's wolf warrior diplomacy in recent years.
In mid-April, Sweden ended all cooperation with the Chinese Communist Party's Confucius institutes, becoming the first country in Europe to cut all ties with the politically minded program. Swedish politicians said that this was not only a result of the Confucius Institute's conflicting values, but also the result of the CCP's wolf warrior diplomacy in recent years. In mid-April, a Sverige Radio survey revealed that several Swedish cities had ended their cooperation with their sister cities in China and canceled all Confucius Institute and Confucius classroom initiatives. Member of the Swedish Parliament, Hans Rothenberg, said,
"It's very nice that Sweden, as the first country in Europe, took such a response. The Confucius Institute went unnoticed when it first entered Sweden. But then it came to our attention because it was revealed as being incompatible with our free and independent values in education and research. They're imposing their own values on others, and that's not something we can tolerate in this free and open country. It is especially intolerable to a free and open education system."
Former Vice President of PACE, the Council of Europe, Göran Lindblad, said,
"The Confucius Institutes resembles an old tradition, a bad tradition from Mussolini's fascist regime in Italy, establishing institutes for language all over. And they were centrals for spying and for influence. So the Confucius Institutes are actually influential institutes. They try to influence the students in the university and also in the schools in order to teach Chinese, but the Chinese way. So they're teaching also politics, and it's a brainwashing system, and that's bad. And also use it to find out things about the system in the country where they are."
In recent years, the wolf warrior diplomacy used by the Chinese ambassador to Sweden has caused widespread resentment among Swedes, and the deadlock between the two countries has only intensified. Professor of Department of Economy and Society at the University of Gothenburg, Lars Nordström, said,
The CCP ambassador has very little credibility in Sweden because he is very tough on some issues, for example, on issues regarding writers' publications and the arrest of dissidents, regardless of the fact that he is a Swedish citizen. Also, he did not explain why this epidemic was spreading so rapidly from China.
Member of the Swedish Parliament, Hans Rothenberg, said,
The Chinese ambassador did not help form a good atmosphere in the relationship between the two countries at all, as he communicated through threats and accusations. This made it very difficult for the two parties to get along. In recent years, we have all seen the CCP ambassador's words have become increasingly malicious. This has very unfortunately led to the worsening of relations between Sweden and China.
South Korea's metals industries is worried that Chinese aluminum companies are moving into South Korea and will squeeze out domestic producers. They also warn that China could be using South Korea as a production base to enter the U.S. market.
In order to prevent Chinese aluminum producers from invading the Korean market, the Korean aluminum industry began jointly resisting a Chinese aluminum giant from entering the market in South Jeolla Province's Gwangyang Bay area since 2018. In November 2018, Henan Mingtai Aluminum, a Chinese aluminum sheet manufacturer, signed an investment contract with the Gwangyang Bay Area Free Economic Zone Authority. It plans to invest 40 billion won, $32.8 million USD, to produce aluminum products. The groundbreaking ceremony was held in December 2018 to kick off the construction of the plant, but the project was opposed by the Korean aluminum industry. Mingtai Aluminum is the second most prolific producer of rolled aluminum in China. The Korean aluminum industry believes that its annual production of rolled aluminum is equivalent to over 80% of South Korea's, which would severely undercut South Korea's domestic aluminum producers.
The production scale of Mingtai Aluminum in South Korea is 100,000 tons of plates and 20,000 tons of foil a year, which is equivalent to the production scale of 2 Korean companies. Thus, losses are inevitable for Korea's domestic producers.
South Korean officials believe that introducing such a substantial player in the global aluminum market to South Korea will surely drive up aluminum production, with a corresponding drop in aluminum prices. The Korean industry suspects that by entering South Korea's market under unfavorable cost conditions, Chinese manufacturing companies might be using South Korea as a roundabout export base. If this is the case, there may be potential trade friction between South Korea and the United States in the future.
The Trump administration has proposed higher anti-dumping duties. We have concerns that China is using South Korea as a production base to enter the U.S. market.
The industry is doubtful about the employment promotion effect of the Foreign Investment Promotion Act. Meanwhile, it is concerned that unreasonable foreign investments will cause Korean companies to close down, leading to an increased unemployment rate and possible leakage of advanced technology.
Our domestic companies and Mingtai Aluminum produce many similar aluminum products. South Korea's ultra-thin technology is actually more advanced than China's. Thus, we are worried about whether the ultra-thin technology and other advanced technology will flow into China.
The Korean industry is very worried that if large Chinese companies such as Mingtai Aluminum successfully invest in South Korea, more investments will follow, leading to more domestic companies suffering losses.
Demand for face masks worldwide is at an all-time high, which should be good news for Chinese manufacturers. However, it's posed some challenges to face mask producers in China.
The worldwide demand for masks during the pandemic is high. This supposedly good market and business for the Chinese manufacturers was met with a challenge: supply shortage to some and disruptions to others. It all came down to the monopolized oil and gas industry in China. Raw materials are only available to those who are well connected. Li Di, alias, is a shareholder of a sanitary products company in Yiwu, Zhejiang. Driven by the good market, the company also invested in the production of masks. He mentioned the melt-blown fabric is only available through agents with good connections with Sinopec, the China Petroleum and Chemical Corporation. Therefore, any other sources of melt-blown fabric in China would only give fabricated materials.
Our disposable diaper factory was qualified to produce masks because it's aseptic. With the high demand in masks, we decided to produce masks. Because of the pandemic, we had to plan and order the machines in February.
Where did you get the orders?
The US or anywhere. We are well documented with business licenses.
How's the paper diaper business?
It's been good, but the mask business has better profit and is in high demand. That's why we decided to add 2 lines in the factory for the production of masks.
With the additional 2 lines, was it an additional $1 million, approximately $141,000 USD of investment?
More than that. It's $30 million, $4,232,000.
How much is the melt-blown fabric?
It's gone up to $590,000 to $700,000, $83,241 to $98,760 a ton.
Will you be able to get the fabric? Without it, how are you going to produce the mask?
We simply won't produce any masks if there's no melt-blown fabric.
Do you have it in stock?
Not much. Right now, we have 700 kilos, enough to produce 1 million plus masks.
How many masks can you produce a day?
A little more than 1 million with 2 machines running.
How many masks have you exported?
We should have exported more than 20 million masks to date.
Has the order come in non-stop?
There are orders, but not as many as it was. We can't afford the soaring price of raw material.
You mentioned the melt-blown fabric is purchased through middleman. Is it easy to find the source?
No, not easy. These agencies have monopolized the sources. The melt-blown fabrics are not sold in an open market.
Who would have the capability to procure the sources?
It's surely those who are related to Sinopec. Their friends, relatives, they are the ones who can secure the goods.
Are they only available at the Sinopec, nowhere else?
Only Sinopec is qualified and certified to make melt-blown fabrics. The rest are fabricated. That's why it's hard to reach an agreement in the order. You can't afford to produce it if the mask is sold at a low price. But if it's marked high, people won't buy it.
How many days have you run the line since March? Or has it been running every day?
Not every day. There's not enough raw materials. If it's non-stop, the profit can be tremendous. But we can't just run it every day.
The interview was conducted on May 6th by Xiaohua Gu of the Chinese language Epoch Times.
Demonstrations in Hong Kong have started up again despite social distancing laws. Authorities recently arrested close to 200 protesters, including a local official. The protests started in March 2019, are against the increased encroachment of mainland China's laws and influence.
So first off, we have just some quick updates, an update on Hong Kong. Now, I mentioned in a previous episode that currently the way it is in Hong Kong is basically the local authorities have been using the virus as a way to shut down protests. You're not allowed to have gatherings of more than a few people. But it seems that the Hong Kong protesters are not letting this stop them, and there was just a news update on this. We have a story here from the Star. It says Hong Kong protests return again as COVID-19 pandemic wanes. And again, if we understand the people of Hong Kong, close to 2 million people who went out and protested on the streets, they did that knowing that the Chinese regime would very likely come after them. It is not like in the mainland where they don't know about things like the Tiananmen Square massacre. The people in Hong Kong know exactly what the Chinese Communist Party has done in the past, and they know exactly what it might do to them. And regardless of that, in the face of that, they still went to the streets and took a stand for what they believed in.
German publication Der Spiegel reported that German intelligence said that China pressured the WHO to delay global warnings about the CCP virus. Other publications are reporting the same. So far, the WHO is denying the claims.
Now, big update on the WHO. Der Spiegel in Germany is reporting that German intelligence is saying now that China pressured the WHO to delay global coronavirus warnings. And many news outlets have been reporting on this as well. Of course, here we have an article from the Jerusalem Post noting the WHO is denying these reports. But regardless, this is a very big deal. This is coming at a time, of course, when not only the Chinese regime, but also the WHO are being investigated, at least by the United States, into whether they covered up the, say, outbreak of this virus and misled countries in terms of how to deal with it. One example of that would be not warning of human-to-human transmission on time so that countries kept their borders open longer than needed. In other words, even when they knew there was human-to-human transmission, telling countries that it was still safe to keep their borders open, and if they did not close their borders to China, of course, calling them racist like they did to the United States. And so this is a big deal because if this is true, and of course there are many reports on it and German intelligence, interestingly, on it, this does mean the WHO very likely folded to pressure. Now, of course, again, the WHO is denying these reports. We can't say for certain whether the German intelligence source is accurate, but I think this is something very much worth following, and of course I'll be keeping up on it.
To watch the entire Crossroads video on YouTube, you can visit the link posted in the description below. The following charts will show you the most recent numbers regarding the CCP virus pandemic. The Chinese Communist Party's cover-up led to a pandemic that now threatens the lives of people around the globe. With over 4.3 million people infected, China is still defensive about independent international inquiry into the origin and spread of the CCP virus. The Epoch Times has initiated a global Sign the Petition campaign calling for investigating, condemning, and rejecting the CCP. We believe that investigating and exposing the truth is the only way that we can remain safe. Let's take action. Sign the petition at ccpvirustruth.com. That's all for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this program with friends and family to keep them informed about the latest news and updates. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.